Are there constructive things that you can do to help restore a culture of life? Find out next on this edition of Life Matters. Our host, Brian Johnston, has been a teacher at every academic level, from adult education and junior college down through high school, junior high, and even 5th and 6th grade. As is so often the case with teachers, he has also coached. Many on the California pro-life team call him the life coach. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. He is an author and lecturer, a film producer, and commentator. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Well, welcome to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, on culture, and on the very real battle of ideas. And this is a real battle. It's not a mere metaphor, because these ideas involve human lives. And if these ideas are enforced, which is all that laws are ideas that are enforced. Lives will either be protected or they'll be taken. In this Right to Life program, we're going to talk about a very special president, President Ronald Reagan. Every February, we mark Ronald Reagan's birthday. The birthday itself is February 6th, but we sometime during the month set aside time to talk about and honor President Ronald Reagan, a pro-life hero. Today's program, we have numerous quotes from President Reagan, significant quotes that I think will help you understand the battle he was in and how he moved forward even in tough times. Back in the 1980s, I was befriended by Judge William Clark. Judge William Clark had been the chief of staff for Governor Reagan, and then when Governor Reagan retired, he appointed Judge Clark to the judgeship of the California Supreme Court. He served on the court for years. As you know, President Reagan then had run for president several times before he was successfully elected in 1980. At that time, he asked Judge Clark to leave the court and to come and join him in Washington, D.C., where he took the most trusted position and was one of his closest counselors. The official biographer of Ronald Reagan says that Judge William Clark was the man spiritually closest to Ronald Reagan. And I think it's very important that we recognize the contribution that Ronald Reagan made to history, and even Judge Clark. Judge Clark made it a point to unite Ronald Reagan with, at that time, Pope John Paul II. As you know, both of them, as heads of state, lived through an assassination attempt. And because of his connection with Poland, John Paul II was significant in working with Ronald Reagan to bring down the Warsaw Pact, which was the Russian communist control system for Eastern Europe, and did so without firing a shot. And that was Ronald Reagan that helped him do that, and it was Judge William Clark that put them together. And all of this was behind the scenes. There's books written about that. But Judge Clark was an amazing man. He pursued me. He befriended me, and I was quite humbled by that. He was a humble man. He lived in the Central Coast. He referred to himself as a simple cattle country lawyer, and that was his pursuit at the time that Ronald Reagan asked him to be the San Luis Obispo County coordinator for the Reagan for Governor campaign back in the 60s. And so Judge Clark humbly did that, and then humbly served in Washington, D.C. then as National Security Advisor. That's the person that holds the control codes, the football, they call it, the launch codes for the missiles. He served in many capacities, kind of a utility player, he put it, on the Reagan cabinet. He was Secretary of Interior at a crucial time in that political world. You see the politics of Washington right now. It was just as bad, if not worse, during the Reagan time, and the media hated Ronald Reagan because he stood for basic principles of America. One, of course, is the right to life. And the right to life is a foundational element of our American founding. It's a self-evident truth. It is in accordance with the laws of nature and of nature's God. The first quote you're going to hear here is actually Ronald Reagan talking about that during one of the earlier debates in the 70s when he was running for president. He actually ran for president 3 times. And it was only in 1980 when he ran that he won. But this abortion issue would come up frequently. Listen to his response. I think it's very incisive, and it helps us understand the nature of this battle. He was asked about the religious issue of abortion. And you and I know this isn't a religious issue. Either that's a human being or not. And if I believe that that child's heart is beating just 16 days after conception, well, that's nice. But if I don't believe it, it's still beating. This isn't about my belief. This is about the humanity of that child. Will the laws protect the objective facts that this is a human being? That's the debate. And Ronald Reagan does a great job in that.
With me, abortion is not a problem of religion. It's a problem of the Constitution. I believe that until and unless someone can establish that the unborn child is not a living human being, then that child is already protected by the Constitution, which guarantees life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to all of us.
As I said, Judge William Clark, who was Ronald Reagan's closest friend in many ways, had befriended me in the 80s and wanted to make sure that Reagan's legacy on life would continue. So we're proud to do that. He wanted to make sure that Reagan's book, Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation, stayed in print. It had gone out of print. And so he asked me, and I was honored to do so. I contributed a chapter, and he himself, Judge Clark, contributed a chapter to this book. It's the only book that was published during a president's presidency. Historically, presidents will write books before they're elected. They'll write books after they're elected, but only Ronald Reagan published a book during his presidency, and that's Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation. And we have kept that republished and available. Yes, you can get it on Amazon. But if you want to send to California Pro-Life Council, we're proud of Ronald Reagan because we're Californians. If you want to send a donation of $12 or more, putting a little extra in there for the shipping, but we'll be glad to get that out to you. That's Ronald Reagan's book, Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation.
You're listening to Life Matters. If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment.
Power.
You're pro-life and you want to defend your position, but you're not sure what to say. That's pretty common. So get the facts you need to back up your pro-life position with the Power of 7 app. The Power of 7 gives you effective pro-life replies to 7 of the most common pro-abortion arguments. It's simple, it's easy to use, and it's free.
Power of 7.
Download it now at thepowerof7.org. The Power of 7, the number 7.org.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters, your program on life, on culture, and that very real battle, the battle of ideas. It's swirling all around us. It's still with us. And this is not a metaphor to call it a battle, because lives can and will be lost, or lives will be protected because of the ideas that are put into place. As I said, Judge Clark during the 80s befriended me, and I was very, very humbled by that. His was an old line California family, but the name Clark is an Irish name. When he retired, he actually spent some of his time back in Ireland. Many of you know that I'm first generation Irish, and I have family in Ireland. And in fact, I actually several times met with Judge Clark in Ireland. He had served on the board of the Bank of Ireland and had a home outside of Dublin where my wife and I also would visit with him and his wife. It was quite an honor and privilege, and he told me many stories of the Reagan presidency, some that are known and published in various books. There's a great book called The Judge. I strongly recommend that book about Judge Clark. But he was a humble man, and he wanted to make sure that honor got its due, and particularly that President Reagan would not be forgotten because of the great effort that President Reagan made to stand for life. So again, before we go to these other quotes, I want to remind you, if you'd like to get a copy of President Reagan's book, Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation, go to californiaprolife.org. For a donation of any amount over $12, because we've got to cover the postage these days, we'll get that out to you. And make sure you give us your details, and we'll be glad to do that. Again, this is Reagan Day on Life Matters, your program on life, culture, and the battle of ideas. Next, we're going to hear from a speech that President Reagan gave to the national religious broadcasters in 1984. And this is a great speech. I think you'll understand why.
I know what I'm about to say now is controversial, but I have to say it. This nation cannot continue turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to the taking of some 4,000 unborn children's lives every day. One every 21 seconds. We cannot pretend that America is preserving her first and highest ideal, the belief that each life is sacred, when we've permitted the deaths of 15 million helpless innocents since the Roe versus Wade decision. 15 million children who will never laugh, never sing, never know the joy of human love, will never strive to heal the sick or feed the poor or make peace among nations. Abortion has denied them the first, most basic of human rights. We are all infinitely poorer for their loss. This nation fought a terrible war so that black Americans would be guaranteed their God-given rights. Abraham Lincoln recognized that we could not survive as a free land when some could decide whether others should be free or slaves. Well, today, another question begs to be asked. How can we survive as a free nation when some decide that others are not fit to live and should be done away with? I believe no challenge is more important to the character of America than restoring the right to life to all human beings. Without that right, no other rights have meaning. Suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of God. I think we're making progress in upholding the sanctity of life of infants. I've asked for your all-out commitment, for the mighty power of your prayers, so that together we can convince our fellow countrymen that America should, can, and will preserve God's greatest gift. We are a government of, by, and for the people. And people want a constitutional amendment to restore the rights that were taken from us. Let us encourage those among us who are trying to provide positive alternatives to abortion. And with your help, we can win, and that will be a great victory for our children.
And that's your president, Ronald Reagan, one of the great presidents of the United States of America, who was significant in shaping history. President Reagan, as you know, was the one that basically shut down the Soviet Union, that urged Mr. Gorbachev to tear down this wall as he stood before the Berlin Wall. And the reality is that many of his advisors, his more moderate advisors, urged him not to do that. But Judge Clark was very supportive. And the reason that you and I should be opposed to communism is because it's an ideology that's exactly the opposite of the American ideology. That is to say, America believes that government exists because human beings exist, and it's human beings that have value, and that the value and merit of government emanates from the lives of the governed, and that you can judge its purpose as a government is derived directly from the value of those lives, and for this reason governments are established among men, that it's the human being that came first. And therefore, it's the human being's life that should be protected. Because the government has power, well, it shouldn't just use that power in a raw manner. Its first duty is towards those vulnerable citizens. Very important premise. Marxism is the opposite. Marxism is trying to create a brave new world, and human beings are mere cogs in the flow of history. Human beings can be dismissed under a Marxist worldview, and that's exactly what Marxism did. And it took millions of lives. And thankfully, that ended in Russia, but Marxism still exists, my friend. And it may not even call itself that name. People may not call themselves communists, but they can actually believe in that ideology. So that war isn't over. That battle of ideas is still very much with us. And if you know what Marxism is, when you talk to some of your friends and neighbors, you might realize they actually think a lot like a Marxist. And so you have an opportunity to try to clarify for them what the principles of American government are. And the first is that government derives its just power from the lives of the governed. And we hold these to be self-evident truths, that we're all created equal and we're endowed by our Creator. We're not endowed by the government. We're endowed by our Creator with our rights. And it's the job of the government to protect those rights. And so this is very, very important. Ronald Reagan understood that, as you could tell from some of his quotes. And we're going to have more of those quotes when we get back. We're going to take a quick break right now. You're listening to Life Matters.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. Life Matters continues after this.
Life Matters is sponsored by the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. To find out more on how you can help and be involved right where you are, go to californiaprolife.org. That's californiaprolife.org. We'll tell you how you can get involved in your local community, how you can be effective if you want to be a pro-life speaker. We have training programs and open doors of opportunity for you to speak on the life issue. If you'd like to donate your car or a boat, you can do that at californiaprolife.org. Car Easy makes it easy, and you find that on our website. We get the most of any donation program. Car Easy allows us to get the most out of your car. Maybe you're not getting the trade-in value you wanted. Maybe it's just not running the way it used to. Let your car be used for life. Go to californiaprolife.org and find out what you can do to make a difference. californiaprolife.org.
Be sure to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast with Brian Johnston. Go to lifematters.life to subscribe. And now back to more Life Matters.
During my last 2 years as governor, I did a weekly 1-hour TV question and answer program. The questioning was done by high school students, a different group each week, chosen by the state's Department of Education. For me, I have to say, it was exciting and most enjoyable to meet these young people and to discover what concerned them about government and current issues. Several times the subject got around to abortion and why the government of California opposed abortion on demand. One day, a pretty, fresh-faced young lady, intelligent and sincerely concerned, asked me if abortion wasn't preferable to making a young unmarried girl have a baby she didn't want, and which would therefore grow up unloved and probably turn out to be a criminal. I gave an answer which apparently she hadn't considered. I told her there were literally millions of people in this country who wanted but could not have children, and who waited eagerly, sometimes for years, to adopt the baby she had described. That such a child would not be unloved. Very much the opposite was true. There were always some raised hands and unanswered questions after the cameras were turned off, and I always tried to stay around to answer them, even though we were no longer on the air. Well, this day, another equally attractive girl had her hand half raised. I called on her, but she didn't have a question. Instead, she said, "I am adopted. I think a great deal of my folks, and I think they feel the same about me." And then she added this unforgettable line, "I'm glad no one killed me."
You're listening to Life Matters, your program on the right to life, on culture, and the battle of ideas. It's a real battle. It's not a metaphor, because lives really are lost, or they're saved because of the efforts of you and others. And remember, if you're standing for the right to life, the facts are on your side. And facts are terrible things to waste. You know, if you're listening in, please remember that we're on the air because of your help. If you could help us out, tell us what station you're listening on, or if you're listening to podcast, we want to make sure we're meeting your needs. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. You can write to us at P.O. Box 935, Sacramento, California, 95812. That's P.O. Box 935, Sacramento, California, 95812. Or if you'd like to call to pledge, you could call our 800 number, 800-924-2490, 800-924-2490, and let them know that you want to pledge, and a volunteer will get back to you about that. Please let us know where you listen to us. Give us the call letters of that station, and if you have any questions, feel free to include those as well.
So please join us in this battle. If you want more information on Life Matters, go to lifematters.life. That's lifematters.life to deal with this program or to subscribe to the podcast. If you're in California, go to californiaprolife.org. californiaprolife.org. We're the state affiliate of the National Right to Life Committee. If you are anywhere in the country other than California, go to nrlc.org and find out about your state affiliate of National Right to Life. Get information on how to be involved in this battle of ideas because lives are at stake, and a life is a terrible thing to waste. So please get involved in this battle, get equipped with the ideas that make a difference. We're honoring Ronald Reagan today on the Reagan program. His birthday is February 6th, but we make a point during February to set aside a day for Ronald Reagan because he was a Californian, but he was one of the great presidents of American history, and he was stalwart in his defense of innocent human life. I've also mentioned to you about Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation is the only book that was actually published by a sitting president. President Reagan felt so strongly about the abortion debate and the abortion issue and the need for protection for this child in the womb that he is the only president to have published during his presidency. Many presidents have published before they became president. Many have published after they were president. This book was published during his presidency. And Judge William Clark made a point of making sure that the right to life message came through loud and clear. Judge Clark agreed with me, and I think with you too if you look into it, that the right to life is absolutely essential, not just to our form of government, but that it's actually the basis of Western civilization. That's how important it is. You know, you've inherited the distillation of Western civilization. That's what America is. Ronald Reagan said this. He said that America is a bright city on a hill. He said that America is the last great hope of mankind. Your nation is extraordinary. Your founders gave us a form of government built on principles that had never before been elucidated so clearly. It was the distillation. Those British gentlemen who now were breaking away from England had literally thousands of years of European history from which to draw. They now were free to create a new form of government. It was the first time in human history that a government came into existence that intentionally limited its own power. Before that, when you got power as a government, you centralized that power. They intentionally limited. And more to the point, they spelled out that the first job of government was to protect the lives of the human beings it was governing. And for this reason, governments are established among mankind. They also said that human life, first and foremost, is not given by the government. Our lives and our rights are given by our Creator, and it is the duty of government to protect those lives, and that's how you judge a good government. How well does it protect those lives and their rights? Our founder said that. Ronald Reagan believed in that. I believe in that. And if you study American history, you should believe in that.
A little over 8 years ago, when I became governor of California, I found myself involved almost at once in a controversy over abortion. It was a subject to which I hadn't given much thought before, and one upon which I didn't really have an opinion. But as governor, I had to face the issue. A bill had been introduced in the California legislature to make abortions available on demand. The forces for and against it were marshaling their troops, and emotions were running pretty high. Then the author of the bill sent word to me that he'd amend it any way I felt necessary in order to get me to sign it. Well, as they say, the ball was in my court. I did more studying and soul-searching on that subject than on any other in my years as governor. I learned that neither the medical professional, law, or theology had ever really found a common ground on the subject. Some believed that an unborn child was no more than a growth in the female body and that she should be able to remove it as she would her appendix. Others felt that human life existed from the moment the fertilized egg was implanted in the womb. Ironically, the same legislature that couldn't agree on abortion had unanimously passed a law making it murder to abuse a pregnant woman so as to cause the death of her unborn child. Another inconsistency. Unborn children also have property rights protected by law. A man can will his estate to his wife and children, and any children yet to be born of his marriage. Yet the proposed abortion law in California would have denied the unborn the right to life itself. I went to the lawyers on my staff and posed a hypothetical question. What if a pregnant woman became a widow during her pregnancy and found that her husband had left his fortune to her and the unborn child? Under the proposed abortion-on-demand law, she could take the life of her child and inherit not half, but all of her husband's estate. Now, wouldn't that be murder for financial gain? Well, they said they were glad I wasn't asking the questions on the bar exam. There's a common acceptance in medical circles that the cell, let's call it the egg, once it has been fertilized, is on its way as a human being with individual physical, even personality characteristics already determined. My answer as to what kind of abortion bill I could sign was one that recognized that an abortion is the taking of a human life.
You're listening to Life Matters, your program on life, culture, and the battle of ideas, and this is our program dedicated to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan wrote the book Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation, and you can get that for a donation of anything over $12. We got to cover postage these days, and we'll get you a copy of Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation by Ronald Reagan, where he asserts the importance of life and the value of every single life. Special thanks to the Reagan Foundation. If you're ever out in California, try to get out to Simi Valley, where you can visit the Reagan Library. It's an excellent tour, and it gives you deep insight into the challenges that Ronald Reagan faced and his significant contribution to American history and really to the history of the world.
Do you have a question about the right to life? Call our Lifeline anytime at 800-924-2490 or visit us online at lifematters.life. Learn more about everything in today's show online at lifematters.life, where you'll find all the resources you need to protect life. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. Get informed and get involved.